I hear so often from so many people that, oh, I just want to advance, I just want to do these advanced things, I just want to move on to this, I just want to do this. I don't want to work on those basic things. I'm learning Spanish. I've already been studying for 3 years. I don't need to learn about ser and estar. I don't need to learn these basic things that I learned in my first year. I just need to improve the subjunctive. I just need to improve my speaking, my reading, and all of these more advanced things. Well, I'm here today with this video because all of those fundamental aspects, all of those things that seem so basic that you maybe don't want to go back and do because you want to learn those more advanced concepts, those are the key to your success in learning a language, but also just in learning, because you need to really know those things well. And no, you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours studying those basic things. You do also need to study some of those advanced concepts when you progress and when you become more advanced. But never underestimate the importance of going back to the basics and studying those and becoming really good at them. And if there is one thing that I have learned as a teacher, it is the importance of understanding the things that I thought I was above, that I thought I already knew. Because when I've gone back to some of these key concepts, and I've taught some really basic things, like I've taught basic math, basic English, all these structures, and I've learned every time I've taught. And even in college, like, I had the perspective, I had the mindset that, like, oh, I don't need to learn these things, whatever it is, like, I don't need to learn about parts of speech in English because, oh, that's like high school stuff, that's elementary school stuff, like, I don't need that. But really, I didn't know these things as well as I thought I did, and my abilities were not nearly as good as I thought they were. And that's what I've learned, and that's what I really want to share, and I really want you guys to understand, is that no matter how good you get, you can always benefit from going back to basics, from going back to things that you learned years and years ago, because guess what? You learned them years and years ago, and our brains just do not retain all this information unless we keep practicing it. So that's why teaching is so cool, because you get to go back through those concepts, and even though you're not just going back to them to study them, like, you're going back to them to teach them, but you're going through them. So not only are you keeping it fresh in your mind, but also you get a new perspective about what it means. And like in some of my videos on YouTube about like ser and estar that I mentioned, or even just basic vocabulary, things like that, we forget those things, we don't practice them. And you don't necessarily have to spend all this time just practicing these skills in isolation, or maybe you're not teaching these skills because maybe your goal is not to become a teacher, but you can go back through these, and even in your writing, your more advanced studies, like, you can still go back and focus on these without entirely shifting back to these basics. Or you can even spend an entire day, like an entire study session, and just say, okay, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna review. Or like Duolingo, you can go on there and you can review all of those concepts. But also, like, as you go into the more advanced studies, like as you're reading and writing and speaking, you're gonna use those skills as well. Like, you're gonna use all the basic vocabulary and grammar and structures, you're gonna use that and you're gonna apply it to what you're learning now. And really, I would say the key way to improve is by doing some of those more advanced activities, because we do need to be stimulated, right? We do need to have some new information coming in. We can't just keep going over the same stuff over and over again, because we need to be advancing. We need to be adding new information. But there is a combination, like a gentle balance between how much new information we add and how much of our current skills we retain. So what I recommend is, when you're going through anything, you're studying anything, so go through it, and as you're learning, just really think about it. Like, think about the process, think about what you're doing, like how does this work, why does it work, and then when you notice things that maybe you're like, what does that word mean? Like I do this in English all the time. When I'm writing, I will be writing and like I want to use a word that I've used before, that I've heard before, or whatever it is, and I'm like, I know this word, like I've used this word, but I want to really understand what it means. So I'll look up the definition of that word, even though it's in English and even though I kind of know what it means, because I want to really make sure I'm using it accurately. So with language learning or with Spanish, with whatever it is, as you're going through, or you find like a grammatical concept, or you find a word that you look up and then it ends up being in the preterite tense or whatever it is, like look that up, and then you can just kind of learn through what interests you. So if you find something that you're curious about, you have questions about, go deeper into that. So you can like go and read or listen to or watch a movie or whatever it is, and then when you find something that's like, I don't understand that, look it up, get into it, and really figure out, like learn what it is, and then you'll likely find that it goes back to some of those basics. Okay, so that's one way to kind of integrate the basics into advanced studies, is through that process, and it's something that I do all the time, when especially in my Spanish, because I look up, like I'll be writing an essay or writing a response or whatever it is, and I do it a lot, in particular with prepositions. So I'll write it and then I'll look up, like, okay, do I actually say this way? Do I use this preposition? Do I use this form of this word? Does this work? I'll look it up, and then even though it's a basic skill, like even though I learned how to use the preterite and the imperfect, even though, and I forget how to speak English sometimes too, like even though I've used the preterite and I've used the imperfect, and I still sometimes get confused when I'm writing, and so I'll go and I'll look it up and I'll type it in and see, what it is, and sometimes it's what I thought it was, and sometimes it's different, and sometimes it can, vary based on the context, and I learn more about it. So I've got that basic understanding, but I can still go deeper into my understanding of that, and that's my goal, right? That's where I'm going, is I want to know this stuff really, really well, because that's just who I am. Like, you might not necessarily need to know all these grammatical concepts, depending on your language goals, but never underestimate how important it is to learn those basics, and try to have the mindset of, like, when someone tells you, I think you should focus on this. Like, I think you should really focus on indirect and direct object pronouns, because I noticed this. Like, listen when people say that to you, because that's been one of my biggest mistakes, is that people have told me, like, oh, you need to do this, or oh, I don't understand the way that you wrote this because it really needs this structure, it's missing this. Is like, throughout so many years, I just had the mindset of, like, no, I know what I'm doing, like, I did this, I know what I'm doing, and I didn't listen. And so really listen when other people, when your teachers and other people who are helping you point something out and say, hey, you need to work on this, or hey, you're doing really well at this, and maybe you didn't even think like it was something that you were going for, or you're just like, what? No, I'm not good at that. So it works both ways. Really listen to what other people have to say to help you, but also I think you'll find through that process, at least I did, is that when you do that, you learn how to listen to yourself better too, and you can become more self-aware and more of an independent learner that way too. And that's what I would, if I could go back in time and talk to myself in high school or in college, that's what I would tell myself, is like, hey, listen to what other people are saying. Like, you don't necessarily have to do everything, and you don't necessarily have to agree with everything, but listen to it and think about it and try to understand it from their perspective and see what you can learn from it. One of the biggest mistakes I have made in so many situations, in learning, in languages, in life, in everything, is not looking at every single experience as an opportunity to learn, because it is. There's something to learn from every single experience. So like when I would go to my college classes and sometimes I would sit through them and be like, ugh, you know, like I get this already, I know this, what am I doing? Gradually over time, I adjusted my mindset so that I could say like, okay, I get this, but what can I still learn from it? So I already know these basic concepts, but what can I learn from this? How can I improve? And that has really been the key to getting to the level that I am now, is thinking about how I can improve, how I can use what someone else is saying to improve. And it's a lot of effort on your part. So, or on my part, it's a lot of effort to figure out how it works. And so yes, like listen to what they're saying, but also really process it and ask questions. Like think about, oh, how does this work? You can ask questions, you can ask yourself questions, but try to learn something from everything. If you take one thing away from this video, is that you can learn from every single situation, even if you think you already know everything in that situation. This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make, that I have made, is learn from everything. Learn from the basics. When you are in a lesson or a class or any kind of experience and you feel like, oh, I already know this, I don't need this, instead of just checking out and thinking about like what you're gonna do Friday night, think about how you can make what's being said, what's being offered to you relevant, and anything that you can learn from it. And that's the mindset that's gonna really help you grow, and that I wish I had developed sooner. So yeah, keep an open mind and try your best to learn from every experience that you have. Even if you don't learn from it at the time, reflect back on it and see what you can pull from it and how you can improve the next time you're in that kind of a situation, because that's how you're gonna really get there. How you're gonna really progress is by training yourself to learn. All right, that is it for my spiel on how to learn from the very basics that we many times just want to pass over. And if you can relate to this in some way, or maybe you just think it's nonsense, and that's okay too. Like I said, I did at some point too, and it might not work this way for everyone, because you gotta ultimately find your own process. But this is what helped me, and I hope that it helps some of you guys. If it does, please let me know down below, and I will be responding to you guys, and I will see you guys back here soon. Ciao.